Right now, 83 million Americans get their drinking water from systems that depend entirely on electricity to function. 83 million. And the second the grid goes down, whether it's a hurricane, a cyberattack, or a rolling blackout, those systems start failing in ways nobody is telling you about. Here's the myth that gets people killed. They think if their tap water was safe this morning, it'll still be safe tonight. It won't. The clock starts the moment the power cuts out. And you have a much shorter window than you think before that water becomes a genuine biohazard. I'm going to walk you through 7 survival facts that sound right, feel right, but are dead wrong, backed by real incidents, real data, and real timelines. Because the difference between making it through a multi-day blackout and ending up in an emergency room comes down to what you do in the first few hours. Stay until point 6. Because that one mistake, that one safe option most preppers default to, costs more lives than the blackout itself. Let's talk about what's actually happening right now. In February 2021, Texas lost power for 4 days across a state of 30 million people. Water treatment plants failed, pipes burst, boil water advisories hit over 200 public water systems simultaneously. People were melting snow in their bathtubs and praying. And this wasn't a third world country. This was the 10th largest economy on the planet. FEMA's own data shows that the average major power outage in the United States now lasts 8 hours. But when weather is involved, that number jumps to 4.5 days. And when infrastructure is the cause, like a cyber attack or cascading grid failure, you're looking at potentially weeks. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 things about blackout water safety that almost every prepper gets wrong. I'll give you the exact timelines, the exact threats, and the exact fixes. Most people won't know this until they're already sick. You're going to know it before anything happens. Let's go. Point 1. Your tap water is already compromised. You just don't know it. Yet here's the thing most people don't understand. The water coming out of your tap right now is only safe because it's under continuous chemical treatment and pressurized flow. The second your municipal water plant loses power, both of those things begin to degrade. Water treatment facilities use chlorine and chloramine to suppress bacterial growth in the distribution pipes. But those chemicals have a lifespan. Within 24 to 48 hours of a power outage, depending on your water temperature and pipe age, residual disinfectant levels drop below safe thresholds. That's not my opinion. That's the EPA's own guidance on distribution system water quality. And here's what nobody tells you. Bacteria don't wait for an invitation. The pipes under your city are full of biofilm, a thin layer of organic matter and microorganisms that chlorine normally keeps in check. The moment chlorine levels drop, that biofilm becomes a breeding ground. Legionella, E. coli, coliform bacteria. The fix is simple but has a hard deadline. Within the first 6 hours of a blackout, fill every clean container you have. Bathtubs, pots, bottles. Because the water coming out of your tap in hour 1 is cleaner than what comes out in hour 24. Diss this and you're drinking bacteria-laced water thinking it's fine. Right up until it isn't. Point 2. The boil water advisory myth. Boiling doesn't fix. Everything here's the myth. A boil water advisory means boil your water and you're safe. That's only partially true, and the part they don't tell you is where people get hurt. Boiling kills biological threats, bacteria, viruses, parasites. It does not remove heavy metals, nitrates, volatile organic compounds, or chemical contaminants. And during a blackout, pipe pressure drops. Low pressure creates a vacuum effect that pulls contaminants from the soil into cracked or aged pipes. In cities with infrastructure built before 1986, which includes most of the Northeast and Midwest, that means potential lead intrusion every time the pressure fluctuates. In 2014, Flint, Michigan put 100 people on contaminated water for 18 months because of exactly this kind of infrastructure failure. Lead doesn't boil away, it concentrates. You have 72 hours before pipe pressure loss in an extended blackout starts creating serious contamination risk from external sources. After that point, even boiled water may have issues that boiling can't solve. The fix: have a filter capable of removing heavy metals and chemical contaminants, not just a basic Brita. Look for filters rated NSF ANSI 53 or higher. If you're serious about this, a gravity-fed filter like a Berkey, Handles both biological and chemical threats without power. Nines this, and you'll boil your water, feel safe, and still end up with lead exposure you won't discover for months. Point 3. The water heater stockpile trick and the hidden danger inside it. You've probably heard this one. Your water heater holds 40 to 80 gallons of emergency water. Drain it in a blackout and you've got a supply that lasts days. Smart, right? Partially. Here's what that advice leaves out. Sediment builds up at the bottom of water heaters over time. Bacteria, specifically Legionella pneumophila, the bacterium that causes Legionnaire's disease, thrives in water heater tanks that are kept below 140 Fahrenheit, which most residential units are, to prevent scalding. The average home water heater sits at 120 Fahrenheit. That's prime Legionella territory. In a blackout, your water heater cools rapidly. By hour 12, that tank is at ambient temperature, a perfect incubation environment. The 2015 Illinois Legionnaire's outbreak was traced back to a building's water system losing temperature control during a maintenance window. 9 people died. The fix. Before you drain that water heater, run the hot water for 2 to 3 minutes to flush sediment. Then treat the collected water with water purification tablets or boil it before drinking. Don't just drink it straight from the tank. You have 12 hours before a cooling water heater. Tank starts becoming a Legionella risk. Act before that window closes. Eyes this, and you're drinking from a bacteria incubator that looks like a water supply. But none of that matters if you make the mistake I'm about to show you in point T5, because that's the one that hits preppers hardest. The people who think they're prepared. Stay with me. Point T4, the swimming pool myth. It's not a backup water source. This one is everywhere in prepper circles, and it needs to stop. People hear a pool holds 20 gallons, and they think, survival jackpot. And yes, pool water can be made potable, but the process most preppers think works doesn't. The common advice is, dilute it, filter it, drink it. Here's the problem. Pool water contains cyanuric acid, the stabilizer that keeps chlorine active in UV light. Cyanuric acid does not evaporate. It doesn't filter out with basic camping filters. At high concentrations, it binds to chlorine in your body and interferes with disinfection capacity. The WHO flags cyanuric acid as a health concern at levels above 100 ppm. Most residential pools run 30 to 100 ppm under normal conditions, and after sitting in a blackout with no circulation and algae growth, those levels shift in unpredictable ways. In Florida, where backyard pools are practically universal, emergency managers have repeatedly warned against treating pool water as a primary emergency source without proper reverse osmosis or distillation equipment. The fix: pool water is a last resort option, not a primary one. If you must use it, distillation, actually boiling and capturing the steam, is the only method that reliably removes cyanuric acid. That requires equipment most people don't have. You have 48 hours before an uncirculated pool, in a warm climate, starts developing harmful algae and bacteria that complicate even distillation. Nice this, and you'll drink chemically compromised water, thinking the chlorine makes it safe. Point 5. The bottled water false security. What's actually in that bottle? Here's the one that stings preppers the most. You've got 50 cases of bottled water in your garage. You're set, except, are you? The FDA regulates bottled water. But here's what they don't require manufacturers to tell you. Expiration dates on plastic water bottles are not about water safety. They're about the bottle. Peat plastic, the clear plastic used in most water bottles, leaches antimony and BPA-adjacent compounds into the water over time, especially when exposed to heat. A study published in the journal Food Chemistry found measurable antimony increases in bottled water stored at 60 degrees Celsius, 140 Fahrenheit, for just 1 week. Your garage in Phoenix in July can hit 150 Fahrenheit. Your car can hit 170 Fahrenheit. That water stored through a Southwest summer is not the same product you bought. The real risk isn't chemical at high enough concentrations to immediately harm you. It's cumulative, and it's compounded in an SHTF scenario where that's your only hydration source for weeks. The fix: store water in food-grade HDPE containers, the opaque white or blue jugs, which are significantly more stable under heat. Rotate your stockpile every 6 to 12 months. Keep it in the coolest, darkest space you have. A basement or climate-controlled space beats a garage in most U.S. climates. Within 7 days of a collapse where bottled water is your only source, You need to know what's in those bottles and how they were stored. Ignore this, and you're replacing one contamination risk with a slow burn one you can't taste. Point 6. The 72-hour rule is wrong. You need water in 24 FEMA's famous guidance. Have 72 hours of supplies. 1 gallon per person per day. So you need 3 gallons minimum per person. Fine, except that math is built for mild scenarios. The 72-hour rule was designed around the assumption that outside help arrives within 3 days. In Hurricane Katrina, it didn't. In Puerto Rico after Maria, federal water distribution didn't reach rural communities for weeks. In Joplin, Missouri, after the 2011 tornado, parts of the city were without clean water for 10 days. And here's what 1 gallon a day doesn't account for: sanitation, hygiene, wound care, food preparation. If you have a medical condition, a child, an elderly family member, or you're in a hot climate, 1 gallon per day is a starvation ration. The Army Field Manual recommends a minimum of 2 liters just for hydration under physical activity. Add cooking, hygiene, and basic sanitation, and you're looking at 2 to 3 gallons per person per day in real conditions. The real timeline: within 24 hours of a serious blackout, you should already be operating as if municipal water is compromised. Not 72 hours, 24. The fix: aim for a 2-week supply at 2 gallons per person per day. If that sounds like a lot, a family of 4 needs 56 gallons for 2 weeks. That's roughly 15 7-gallon water containers from any sporting goods store. About 60 total. Ignore this, and you'll run out of water on day 3 looking for help that isn't coming 7. The natural water source trap. Rivers and streams are not your backup. Plan when the grid goes down and tap water fails. People look outside: streams, rivers, ponds, rainwater, and they think natural water is pure water. It isn't. It hasn't been for decades. Here's the data. The EPA's National Rivers and Streams Assessment found that 46% of U.S. river and stream miles are in poor biological condition. Agricultural runoff carries nitrates, pesticides, and livestock waste. Urban runoff carries pharmaceutical compounds, motor oil, and heavy metals. In the Midwest, the heart of America's agricultural belt, nitrate contamination in surface water is so common that the Des Moines Water Works, Iowa's largest water utility, has spent over $1 million annually running a nitrate removal facility just to make the river water drinkable. Giardia and Cryptosporidium, the 2 most common waterborne parasites in North America, survive standard iodine and chlorine tablet treatment at normal doses. Crypto in particular is resistant to chlorine. You never know it's there until 1 to 3 weeks later when you're doubled over. The fix: if you're pulling from natural sources, you need a filter rated to 0.1 microns or smaller, which covers Giardia and Crypto, plus a chemical treatment stage for viruses. A 2-stage system: filter first, then treat. The Sawyer squeeze, or a similar 0.1 micron filter combined with iodine tablets, is a field-proven combination. You have 72 hours before dehydration forces you to drink from whatever source is available. Have the right gear before that clock starts. Nizor this, and you'll survive the blackout, but spend the next month fighting a parasite your filter didn't catch. Let me leave you with the 3 things that matter most. First, the clock starts the moment power cuts out, not 72 hours later. Not when FEMA tells you to worry. Right now, in the first 6 hours, is when your decisions lock in your survival margin. Second, no single solution covers every threat. Boiling handles biology but not chemistry. Filters handle sediment and parasites but not viruses. Chemical treatment handles viruses but not heavy metals. Layered protection is the only real protection. Third, your stockpile is only as good as where and how you stored it. Bottled water in a hot garage. A water heater you haven't thought about in years. A pool that feels like insurance but isn't. The details are what kill you in a collapse scenario. The window to prepare is closing. Not because I'm trying to scare you, but because grid instability is measurable, aging infrastructure is documented, and extreme weather events are increasing in frequency. You don't prepare for the disaster you want. You prepare for the one that's coming. If this opened your eyes, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Your neighbor, your family, someone who still thinks this stuff only happens to other people. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. I post every week on exactly this kind of intelligence. The stuff most channels won't touch because it's too real, too specific, and too close to home. And drop a comment below. What's your current water storage setup? And after watching this, what's the first thing you're changing? Tell me down there. I read everyone.